June 23rd. Friday, 1893. Charlotte had spent most of the afternoon preparing herself for an evening out, and I had wondered if she was purposefully trying not to announce where exactly she had been planning to go. I, of course, knew very well that she was invited to go to the birthday party of Molly Curd, John Paul's future wife. But I also was well aware that I was not formally invited, and I knew exactly why. My son. I insisted to my youngest daughter that I would escort her to the meeting point that she was supposed to connect with her brother. I had gotten myself properly attired for the night's evening as well, since I planned on having my goat being invited along. When the two were finally in each other's presence, my middle child did her best to ignore my existence of being here. I believe the two began to converse for a short period of time, the boy in hopes that this would eventually deter me to leave. Over time, he let slip something along the lines of,
"Molly is going to be so overjoyed that her soon-to-be sister will be present for her birthday."
I took this as an opportunity to say, "Oh, your fiancé's birthday. Maybe I should come too, so she could probably meet me as well."
I forbid it. I told you that I want you to have no part in my life.
And yet you constantly come to my home and bombard me with demands and requests and access to my doctor. I thought she wanted to meet your family. Is that not why Charlotte is coming along? I mean, she hasn't formally met her either.
You are not my family. The only family I have is Charlotte and the Kurds, not you.
Mein lieber Jung, if you insist on welcoming yourself to my manor whenever you please, then I insist on welcoming myself to your life whenever I please. If there is anyone here who shouldn't want someone in their life right now, it should be me. I raised you practically by myself. At the moment you turned 15 and got accepted into university, you left me and told me you never wanted to come back or see me again. I should be the one insulted and hurt. I gave you everything in your life.
I made a man of myself. I got myself into university, not you.
I gave you the tools necessary to do that. I gave you the clothes on your back and the food on your plate up until that point.
Like that's some sort of big deal for you? You're dripping with money. Like you actually lost any over me?
I gave you your education. I even supported you with going to the university. How are you going to pay me for that without me? How are you going to get your material for studies without me? I even took you on a trip to Germany before you left. I've taught you and provided you so much, and you act like I've done nothing for you. Am I nothing to you?
But you haven't provided him love.
Charlotte had meekly said under her breath, her gaze glued to the floor. I don't think she was ever conscious that she had said those words aloud. Jean-Paul's throat began to burn as he stated,
"It doesn't matter how much you've given to me, it matters how much you've taken, how much you couldn't care. You're not meeting Molly."
Perhaps you should give him this one chance. I know that Molly so desperately wants to meet your family. Do it for her, if not for him.
I then spoke again. Perhaps it was even months ago.
Perhaps you two should stop having a pissing contest and make up your minds. But if you do go, you are going for Jean-Paul's benefit and to wish Molly a happy birthday. You are going to tell them how happy you are for the both of them and will be there because you're proud of Jean-Paul and not bring one drop of spite with you. If you ruin this for him, I shall never forgive you. You may have provided for him, and yes, he disrespected you, but you have to acknowledge that you acted as though he was almost non-existent besides his necessities, not to mention what you made him go through, which I still have no room for tolerance of. Jean-Paul has done so much for himself. He went to university when he was only 15. You should be so proud of him. You should be proud of the life he's building. As your son, it makes you look good, does it not? He's still Dunkelheit. And I am so proud to be able to call him my Bruder, and flesh and blood.
She turned to my son.
And you, show some gratitude to him for once. I know what you've been through, and I am not asking you to forgive him. Far from it, but at least be appreciative that he got you this far. Whether you like it or not, you are his son. And the Kurds want to meet us. If you allow him to come, do it for them. Do it for the love of your life, Molly.
She then looked at the nearby street clock with an aggravated expression.
And both of you decide now because we are late. I can't believe the two of you wasted so much time, for fuck's sake. If you don't come to an agreement by the time the second ham reaches 12, I am leaving without the both of you.
The two of us men both fell silent and made a silent agreement with our eyes. A mobile finally was ready for us at Charlotte's will. It seemed as though she was not fully aware of her brother's stalling until that moment, else she would have prepared the departure already. The three of us got situated in the carriage, the siblings sitting on the same bench as myself across from them. Jean-Paul seemed adamant on keeping his gaze away from me, as he was still obviously upset by this situation. After some silence, the boy finally asked,
What time is it?
14 after, I responded, looking at the time. Do you not have your pocket watch? I know for a fact that I had given him a pocket watch on his birthday shortly after he went off to school. It was originally gifted to me in the 1600s by Igal, but I wanted to give my child something that actually had meaning to me and so it could mean something to him. It was beyond irreplaceable. I wanted to even out the field since I had given Charlotte a present that made her cry, so I tried to make my gift special as well.
Molly actually bought me a new one, but I forgot it at home.
The thought that this boy could so easily rid himself of something both physical and sentimental value left me livid. I suppose he didn't understand the actual worth of the gift. You didn't pawn it, did you?
No, I still have it. It's at home, somewhere safe. It's old and fragile, not to mention priceless and irreplaceable. Why carry something so valuable on me?
Charlotte's face lit up a little with a soft smile. Perhaps she was proud that we both took our own efforts to try and be a family, as strange as it was.
By the way,
He began again.
you're the parent. Could you maybe set the example and try not to throw tantrums over everything? I don't know how Charlotte puts up with you or has over these past 20 years.
I was about to respond, but then I caught a glimpse of Charlotte's pleasing eyes in the corner of my own eye. So I settled for a contempt, grumbling and glaring at the boy who refused to look anywhere except out the window. Not much time passed before we arrived at our destination. The place was by no means small, but it was not as big as I would have expected, or preferred. Jean-Paul got out first and kindly helped Charlotte out as he tried his best to keep up his gentlemanly duties. We followed the young man into the estate where he greeted a decent number of guests on our way. Eventually he brought us to a beautiful young lady with strawberry blonde or pale ginger tresses.
Molly,
Jean-Paul began.
dearest.
The pretty young thing looked at my boy and excitedly gasped.
My darling beloved, you're back.
She went in for a cheek kiss and once done pulled back as she expectantly met with the eyes of Charlotte.
You must be Charlotte.
My daughter's face grew to a very warm and gentle expression as she lightly nodded her head.
I am Molly. I hope you do not mind hugs. We Kurds are quite accustomed to giving them.
She moved in and brought my youngest child in for an endearing gesture. Charlotte had such a complex look of joy pasted across her face. Perhaps she was not only enjoying the feeling of a big sister's embrace, but remembering how her own elder sister never held her so warmly.
There is something else, love. Someone else.
Molly almost quickly let go of Charlotte to whirl her head back toward Jean-Paul. My son gestured towards me.
This is the Count von Dunkelheit. My father.
Molly just as quickly turned all her directions at me as she scanned me up and down, almost unsure as to what to think of the situation. Her face then lit up anew as she turned back to a joyful manner.
It is an absolute pleasure to meet you. I do hope we can all get along like a family.
I offered my hand to grab a hold of hers until she recognized the gesture. I expected and complied for me to kiss her hand. As I did this, I said to the young woman, "The pleasure is all mine. I am glad to see that one so fair is bringing my son all the joys the world has to offer." She let out a giggle and I returned her limb back to her. Where are my manners? Happy birthday to you, Miss Kurd. Or should I say, Miss soon-to-be Dunkelheit? She let out a sweet and lovely chitter.
You're quite the charmer. Jean-Paul wasn't wrong about that.
So he does talk about me.
You have come up quite a few times, Mr. Dunkelheit.
You see, Mr. never really suited me. In fact, Jean-Paul is also a Mr. I think Count is far more appropriate.
Well, I believe that given the relationship I share with your son, the term I should come to call you by would be father?
Would you like to call me father?
Molly,
Charlotte chimed in for the first time.
I lost my manners as well. I've yet to say a word, let alone wish you a happy birthday.
I looked over to Jean-Paul and saw the face of unsettled nerves as his main expression. Always the white knight, that girl, and certainly much better at it than her brother. The young woman turned toward me for a moment and she said,
If you do not mind, Count, I would like to pick up a personal conversation with you later. But I believe that us ladies have some conversing to do.
I flashed her a rather tender smile and said, "But of course. Charlotte makes for some good conversations if given the chance." She bowed her head and I went back to my youngest child and linked her arms. I shot my boy a cunning glance that said he needn't be wary, but he simply shook his head in frustrated disbelief. Upon Charlotte congratulating Molly for her successful countership with Jean-Paul, The topic of my daughter's own eventual marriage ended up coming up. Molly initially asked my girl if she had any suitors or a sweetheart, to which she almost immediately winced and replied with a pained and uninterested no. Seeming to notice the uncomfortable look upon her face, the young lady said,
I understand all too well what it is like, Charlotte. People were saying things about me too, since I was nearing 30 and didn't have a sweetheart. But do not mind them then. When the right person comes, then they will.
The strawberry blonde looked up at my son with such an endearing and kind face.
There is no reason to force it.
Charlotte let out a low snort that she quickly masked with a sort of chuckle.
Oh, did I say something wrong?
Molly's eyes got a little wide in her concerned confusion. My daughter recomposed herself as she shook her head and answered,
Not at all. You're just very sweet. Jean-Paul picked very well. I'd ask that you please treat my brother with all the love and tenderness that he deserves, but I can tell that will not be an issue. You're both very lucky to have found each other.
Ah, yes. The human dream to find a partner to have and hold until death do them part. Which of course was far from any dreams, goals, wishes or desires that ever crossed Charlotte's mind. Though she was able to appreciate when people were able to do it right. In my opinion, these were quite the simple-minded people, and the couple before me were no different. Simply just an unimaginative pair. They really didn't suit each other. Nothing much more noteworthy happened for the rest of the evening, besides the standards of human traditions and celebrations that came with a birthday in this century. Never did understand the exciting events held for getting even closer to an age you'd most likely die at. Charlotte did seem to be rather giddy from the night's festivities, whether it be from meeting Molly, seeing Jean-Paul and I find a middle ground, or a combination of the two.